Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now I'm back again with another Tower of God video, and this time I'm going from episode 151 to episode 160. And this is going to be kind of some of the best pieces of entertainment you're going to get from the Tower. This entire saga is absolutely amazing. In terms of how I'm recapping them, because of the short format that I'm doing and only 10 pages at a time, recapping them is quite difficult. A read through would be far easier, and that is just one of the things that I have to say for the start of this. So let's start going through it. So it starts off with Khun and Ran on Khun's lighthouses. Otherwise, everybody calls him Aguero Agnes because that's his name. Khun is his family name, and Ran is also a Khun, just by the way. And after that, we see everybody is seeing the stairs are disappearing, so they fail to follow them into the train, and the train starts its departure. And then we see Khun with his final words against Rachel. We then go on to the next section where we see that Poro is busy flying on the navigator and he's gonna get into the ship. And we see that he's hoping that his friend is revived so they can start climbing the tower again. Now, there's a lot going on here, and I don't think it's about time to reveal every little piece of information. I think it's better to wait till the whole white issue starts unfolding properly before that is explained. So yeah, we'll continue. So then we see that Poro jumps into the train, and we see that Daniel and the rest of his team have entered, and they now entering onto the Revolution Road, which is the light that's the sparkling road inside the train. And we see that Daniel explains to them this is the same one that the 10 great families followed. It's what caused their division and the unity of some of the families. So we know that this train had a lot to do with what happened to those who walked up before in the past. And then we see that the train departs. Now we know that it's not just 10 families. We know that there were 13 warriors, and then later on they became Jahad and the 10 great warriors, and that is the reason why things are like this here. We don't even know if Jahad was the absolute strongest from the group. We don't know whether he could have beat V or Arlen. We don't know whether that was the situation. We just know that when he came to it, he was in love with Arlen. We know that V stood up against him and didn't approve of stopping the climb. And we see that now that they're on the train, they'll be taking tests on the train, and things start moving forward. We see that Prince is really depressed, and we see that Beta caught Balm, and basically he says that he's completely unconscious. And at the tournament, we see that it ends with the final round being Team Royal and Team Barrow in that finale, and both teams seem pretty powerful. And we're gonna actually get to meet Boro in later times. And then we see Rak is really upset about what happened, and he's left with Quattro and Balrog. So yeah, that's who he's left with. We then see that everybody is worrying about Palm, and we see AKA Williams decides that they will follow up to the next station, and they'll board there while the rest of them take the test to try and get up. They'll try and see what they can do. And we see that Khun says they'll delay the train on the 37th floor. Now, obviously, the 36th floor is in between these two, but they already know they'll never make it to the station in time to board from here. So they will board on the 37th floor at the horse station, the wooden horse station. So then we see that AKA Williams explains the whole story about Daniel. We see that Boro explains as well that they were all companions and they went up together once. And we see that everybody decides to go on a different direction. We then see that Kun said that he sent two people onto the train, that is Wagnan and Iwa. So we know that they are on the train as well. And we see that Kun says he never does last-ditch efforts. He always does things for practical reason. And that is the reason why he's now going to keep going after them. And he says one of the functions of the white heavenly mirror is that it can imprison people in the mirror and release them at a set distance. And we see that is what Kun prepared for Rachel. We then see Bam is hearing a voice from saying he wants the power to go up higher, and that is the end of episode 151. So let's get on to episode 152 and let's start wrapping this up. We see the fight between Barrow's team and their Penskool member is quite powerful, and we see that Kun is declaring that they're quite lame. We then see Kun arrives and he has Bam unconscious with him. Rak is totally worried as per normal, and everybody is totally worried about him while he's lying on the bed. We then see Beta explain that Bam is actually safe. He just overused the thorn and he's overloaded, and he wouldn't die because of that. The fact that the thorn is still out of his body also means that he's not able to completely accept the thorn yet. So he will be fine for now. If he keeps going wild like this here, someday his body may be torn to pieces. Now that's provided that he was a regular individual. But he is an irregular and he has almost unlimited capacity, so that never really was a threat. So we then see that they explain how the train goes. So it takes off from the middle area, then it goes into the inner tower, then it goes back into the middle area, then inner tower, middle area, inner tower, middle area, all the way up until it reaches its final stop. So they can't catch up to it because its route is irregular. Then we see that Kun says they must stop the train. Then we see Borrow and A.K.A. Williams are talking about what's going on. And we see Borrow is shocked when he finds out the name that Bam was called by Jovial Grace. And that is the Slayer nominee who went missing, and everybody is like, and we see that they're explaining that there must be a reason why he left. And we see that Borrow even recognizes Viol's power at that point, or Bam's power. And we see that waking up the Slayer nominee on the train, White is going to take... It's just a matter of time since they're already on it, and they don't really have much of any problems to run into. And then we see finally that Bam starts to wake up. And we see that what's inside Bam is calling itself a demon, and that it's just power, it's just pure power. And we see that Bam takes in the power from the thorn. And we see that Shia is shocked that the train left, and We see that AK Williams decides she'll take care of the situation with the tournament, along with the Yura Ha competition being a fake, and that the situation is gonna get crazy. And they've decided that they're gonna take care of this mess, and that on the 37th floor everybody will meet up. So and we see that the reason why Boro and AKA are helping isn't because they want to help their friend, but because they want to make sure that that Slayer nominee doesn't wake up again. And we see that they mention his name, Hakwin. Now, Hakwin, I know that Joe from Mr. Bonehead calls him Joaquin, and I think that is because it actually is a sufficient way of saying it. The HOA, depending on the language you're speaking, can become Joaquin. So yeah, there is something else. And then we see that they start talking about the Slayer, and we see that AA decides to make a plan, and he is talking to somebody over his lighthouse, and he decides that he wants to have something crazy done, and he's going to have rankers help them with whatever it is. Then we see that someone says they're gonna meet on the train, and we then see that the white heavenly mirror is in the hands of Wagner, and Iwa is there with him as well, and that is where this episode ends. So 152 ends with Iwa and Wagner coming out of the white heavenly mirror, and they are following Team Fug. We then see that Daniel is just slaying any and all guardians in his ways, and we see that they commenting on the fact that his legs are back to normal. And we see that Daniel has to consume souls, but he can never ever be filled. His hunger is never ever satiated. And we see that they keep heading towards the Slayer. Now, I'm not going to call him Joaquin or Hakan. I'm just going to call him White, because that is the best way of describing him. We then see they're on the 36th floor, and they're all preparing for an exam. And we see that Kun is eating on his own, and he's listening to all the rumors that are going around about the train. Now, I'm not going to go into it in detail, but it is important because a lot of these things are explaining things that are going on, and they're pieces of information that are critical. Like, there is a little bit of information that Emily has been tricking people, and people are starting to figure out that you can do some really bad things. And we then see that Kun completes his meal, and he heads upstairs to where his teams are. One team is... We see that one team decided to go up the tower regularly, and the other team has decided that they will get onto the train. We see that the whole hopes of throwing Iwa and Wagner on was in hopes that they could actually get Hwarion away from these guys and pull off some kind of crazy action. We then see that Rak, Balm, and Kun are talking to each other. Then we see that communication is actually cut off from the train on the regular bandwidths, and we see that Kun is trying to come up with a plan. We see that Arc Raptor and Misang are busy with them trying to work out a plan to get on. And we see that Balm has never heard of the Slayer who's on the train. And we see that they decide they're first going to catch up with the train, and then we see that Rak and Kun have a slight fight with each other, and then we see that they have a fight between Rak and Misang about what they're going to eat, because they buy as a group, and it's something which is uniform for them. And then we see that Arc Raptor says that Kun is distancing himself from his teammates for some reason, and he wants to know what's going on. And we see that they're worried about the growth in Balm's strength, because his strength is just getting more and more insane. He's getting more and more skills and more power, and his growth is supernatural at this point because he is absorbing power from the Thorn rapidly. And we see that they need to find something to stabilize the power of the Thorn. Then we see what happened during that test when they took part on the 35th floor. We see that Balm was in no shape to really take the test. He'd just woken up, and he got into the test, and that other team was quite powerful in terms of participants, but they weren't capable of beating the other regulars most times. And after it started, we see that they went out after Balm, and Balm, okay wait, actually 153 ends before that there, where the advancement test began. Then we'll get into 154. Now I am squeezing this here down quite a bit. We see that one of the members of the other team decided they were going to run through with their invisible observer, which keeps them invisible, and they also tried to pick on Rak, who was so tiny, and they ended up learning a lesson when he decompressed. Then we see Balm had to get into position, and while he was holding in position, he could feel the power of the Thorn for him to go up to higher places. And we see that eventually Rak also went crazy to go and attack the enemy side, and the scout decided to try and get past Balm and attack him. But the moment he tried, Balm attacked him just on pure instinct. So yeah, that's how it goes. And if you're a Dragon Ball fan, basically he used Ultra Instinct already, so he's already on that level. And we see that everybody is wondering how in the world they managed to do it. Then we see that you have special rank observers that give people invisibility, and we see that Balm is also saying that his body is reacting on its own. And we see that the offensive team gets knocked out practically because they keep charging at Balm because of what he did to one of their teammates, and his power is just insane. He just knocks them out like nothing. And once he's done beating that entire team, he knocks out himself. Then we see that they refer to him as a real fisherman. A real fisherman is somebody who can play any and all positions on the field. Now, the only other person who we know who's definitely a real fisherman is Jahad, because he can play any position for a team, but he generally loves staying fisherman. Balm generally loves staying wave controller. Then we see that Baum is on his way to the next test and he collapses, and everybody panics and they start rushing him around, and that is where episode 154 ends. We then get to episode 155. We then see that they're getting ready for their test to advance to the 137th floor, and we see that they're fighting somebody who's from the same species as Shia. Then we see that they're all worried about Baum, and they're worrying about his condition and whether he is okay to take part in the test. And Baum says he'll do it, he'll take part in the test. And we see that Kun is worried about him at that point. Then we see that this is quite a heavy fight, and that Baum ends up confronting their fisherman, the head of their team, the person from the same species as Shia. And she fights Baum quite fiercely, and then we see that Baum ends up fighting her quite heavily, and he is basically reacting super fast and dodging every one of her strikes effortlessly, which makes it really crazy. And then he just knocks her out instantly, and he also collapses from that whole result. And we see that they're really worried about him because this constantly losing consciousness isn't a good thing to be going through, and they have to worry about it, and they're worrying whether or not they can actually get onto the train. We then see Jin Sang Ha show up, and this is where things get a little bit crazy. So when Jin Sang Ha shows up, Kun actually gets really terrified. And we see that he's totally scared because rumor has it that Jin Sang Ha kills any of the 10 great family members the moment he sees them. Then we see Wagner is trying to plan his move to save Waryun on the train, and we see that they start heading up to the next test for the floor. And we see that they're getting closer and closer to White, and that is where episode 155 ends. We're going to see where episode 156 goes. So they on the train, and we see that Wagner is waiting to see what they can do, and when the opening shows itself for them to save Waryun, and they're wondering why they're moving so fast. They must be up to something at this point. And we see that Wagner explains that he's pretty sure that there's a test they have to pass by that night in order to get through. Then we see that there's a puzzle on the door that will cost them a ticket should they lose, so they need to complete that puzzle to get to White's piece. And we see that it's a mathematics equation, and they need to do this here, and they're really struggling. That's the team Fug, and they decide that they're going to ask the guide to help them because they couldn't do it themselves. And we see that she switches everything around and solves the puzzle very quickly, and she says that's a simple thing, anybody can do it, you just have to be smart enough to do it. And basically she insults them quite a bit. Then we see that Jin Sang Ha enters in to talk to Baum's team. So we see that Jin Sang Ha is worrying about Baum again. And then we see that Jin Sang Ha decides to talk to the rest of the team. And we see that Kun explains that they have a lot to thank Jin Sang Ha for, and he doesn't have to apologize about anything. And we see that Jin Sang Ha says he's never met anybody named Joaquin or Haquin, and we also know that he has an idea on who it might be but it's somebody who's totally out of their league. And he basically explains that things are going to get messy, so they can't really go onto the train. And we see that that is what's the advice. And we see that Jin Sang Ha decides to send some regulars from Fug to try and sort out the situation. Then we see that Bam tells Jin Sang Ha that he won't stop, he has to get on the train, and he has to do it with his own power. And we see that Jin Sang Ha explains that whoever is on the train is someone he won't be able to handle. We then see that it goes back to Warrior opening the door for them, and we see that Wagner tries to rush through and get through before the puzzle seals itself. We then see that there's a guardian inside the room, and Huariyun helps Team Fug with taking on this guardian. This guardian is quite powerful. We see that Team Fug doesn't work well together, and finally Huariyun helps them and makes them push for multiple openings and take down the guardian. And then we see that she advises them to give a low blow to the guardian. It's a bit of comedy, and they knock the guardian down with that type of an attack, and that's how they end up defeating this guardian. We then see that Huariyun tells Rachel that this team is way beyond her ability, and we see that Rachel explains that she wants an even stronger team. And we see that Rachel is asking whether Huariyun is just pretending to be a hostage for some other plan, like to feed the information to Bam when he arrives. And we see that they continue on with their little motion, and finally Daniel opens the chamber to White. And that is where episode 156 ends, and this is where things really start getting crazy. We then see that Daniel and White have a conversation, and we see that White doesn't want to attack the Red Witch because he considers them to be filthy, and he gives his name, and he basically says he's the one who seeks to regain his throne, and basically he gives the whole story. And you see that he's quite small in size compared to everybody else there, but he's most definitely the most powerful individual. Now, he's from the REA family, so he's from the family with a very strong fighting style when it comes to swords, and he has a mix of their skills. Then we see that the swordsman, Boro, and Mr. Piggy or Mr. Boar, whichever way you want to call him, are all getting ready to enter into the second station. We see that Boro took the swordsman with them, despite the fact that he attacked them. So that's how things go at this point, and we see that Boro explains that he met all of them long time ago on the train. They met in the first section where they all eliminated the regulars, and their team comprised of the defender aka Williams, scout Daniel, fisherman Boro, wave controller Sachi, and there was one more, light bearer Ruina Yui. So yeah, that was their 5-man team who they counted on in the past. And we see that there was a relationship duo with Daniel and Ruina, and a lot of crazy things happened, along with Poro getting caught up in the whole story, and Daniel almost killing him when they first met him, and Ruina actually saving him and helping him board with them to get his ticket on the train. That's where they first met White, and he said he'll give all of them a chance to be his underlings, and basically that's how things started. So we see that this is the introduction that he had, and we see that things went really messed up because eventually Ruina ended up killing one of White's teammates because she had no choice, and that is how they were cornered into a bad situation. and they explain that he's a monster and that he has a habit of killing people and he eats people up. Basically, is that evil. We then see that White decides he's gonna go with this group, and he'll help Daniel with retrieving the person he wants. And we see that Rachel and Yura explain how they're gonna help him gain the souls that he wants through the device that they have. And that is where this chapter ends, and we'll get on to episode 158 now. So yeah, we get into it where Wagner and Iwa are struggling to get the puzzle done, and as they're about to solve it, we see White leaves the room to enter in against them. We then see that on floor 36, there's a floating ship heading up to the higher level for the regulars to enter floor 37, and for them to catch up to the train. They're actually planning to do it at this time. They're about 1 hour behind on the train, so they know they can't catch it properly, so Khun came up with a plan to delay it. We then see White attack Wagner, and he almost cuts off his hand, and basically he's so quick that things are crazy. We then see that White tells Waryu not to do anything or he'll cut this guy's hand right off. We then see that Bam, Khun, and Rak are in a room together, and they're trying to find a way to get past Jinsung Ha. We see that Khun says there's no way they could beat him ever. He's just really crazy powerful. He even wiped out a whole family because he had a grudge on them. And they explain that he'll basically kill them all if they try anything. And we see that Jinsung Ha's condition to let them go is if they can beat him, he'll let them go. So that's how crazy powerful he's saying White is. So White is in that top caliber of fighters. And we see that Khun comes up with a plan. They may not be able to beat Jinsung Ha, but there might be a way for them to get out of here and get away from Jinsung Ha. We then see that Daniel explains that the Slayer nominee, Jovial Grace, will come, and that will be useful for them later if they keep these guys around because they're his teammates. And we then see that the Khun, Rak, and Bam decide to challenge Jinsung Ha, and that they decide they're going to go to the Hell Train, and that's where episode 158 ends. So let's get to episode 159. We then see that Jinsung Ha crunches down on his lollipop, and basically we see that he is going to go at them, and immediately they decide to go at it with a different strategy altogether. We see that they're gonna run away from him, and as they start running, we see that Jinsung Ha starts chasing after them. He immediately catches Rock and takes him down quite easily. We see that Bam heads to the floating ship as fast as possible. We then see that Jin Sang Ha catches up to Viol super quickly. We see that he got a warning at this point from Jin Sang Ha. If he goes onto the train, he's only going to end up losing more comrades, and that this isn't a joke, and basically you should really consider it. We then see that Jin Sang Ha fights another few comrades of Bam, that's Balrog and Quattro. And we see that he instantly takes them out like a joke. And with one hit, basically, they both just stand down. Quattro even just is like, yeah, I give up. And then we see finally it's up to Prince, Miseng, and Arc Raptor for the final little fight. And then we see that they prepared to lighthouse teleport Jin Sang Ha away because that was the only way they could win against him. And we see that their plan was to actually get rid of Jin Sang Ha from the beginning, not to actually escape him. And we see that they explain that Viol is no match for who is on the train. We then see that White kills a deep sea fish so quickly that it's actually scaring Wagner and Iwa. So he's really powerful, he's crazy strong. Now, the big thing that you have to remember is he's already a ranker, and that he for some reason had to split his fused body into 5 pieces, and that's why he is a regular again. We then see that they talk about entering the station. That's Boro and the rest of his team, and they enter the Wooden Horse station. I think this is the Wooden Horse. So we see that they get up onto the station and they getting ready, and inside they sorry, not inside the station, we see that the next one is a clip from inside the train, and that they have compartments where they can sit and relax in between their adventures. And we see basically that everybody in Team Fug explains that White is a complete nut job. We then see Wagner and the rest of his teammates are all sitting there and watching as Angel is parading in front of them. We see that there's something crazy that's being explained to Iwa from Angel's perspective. We then see that Daniel and White are busy chilling and waiting for the next section. And we see that Daniel decided to become a soul eater so that he would survive when he was dying on the train. And we finally get a confession from Rachel that she wants to take something away from Bam. And we already know what it is. She wants to take his destiny away from him. And we see that she's really envious of a lot of things, and she doesn't even know whether she can hold together her fake team. And we see that the train finally is getting ready to pull into the station, and Kun's team is rushing to try and get there. We then see that AKA William shows up, and with her she brought Sachi Faker. Now Sachi Faker is one of the top 3 D rank regulars, so they're basically putting out the big guns for this fight. And we see the train pulling into the station, and that is where things are only about to get even more crazy, because Emily has set up a fake concert along the route with Uraha being on the train. And we see that Sachi is explaining that Emily has helped him hunt a lot of tickets, and that he's going to be that he was only here because of that, because they heard of some crazy stuff going down. Then we see that White is ready to leave, and this is where episode 160 ends. Now let me explain the nitty-gritties of this crazy section of the story. So when it comes to this section, things aren't all cut and clean, black and white. We have Bam's team going through quite a bit of a heavy situation. Sorry. They had to go through the whole situation with Jun Sang Ha, who, if you want to know, is about top 50 level of power. He's a high ranker. So that makes him crazy. The fact that he managed to take out a great family on his own, or one small little part of a great family, means that he's crazy powerful, just to say the least. He is beyond most people's level of skill. He's actually from a merging of 2 families. He's actually Ari and Ha at the same time. So he has 2 great families' bloods, which make him crazy powerful. That means he has an ability from both families, most likely. We've only ever seen his half family side of his strong Shinsu ability, basically any strong Shinsu resistance. We understand that part, but beyond all of that there, what makes this here so crazy is just how crazy powerful he is. And we get the hint of it at the end of this chapter, that it takes a squadron commander to fight someone like Jin Sang Ha. So yeah, that is how crazy it is. And to just have a chance to beat whoever was on the train, you had to be able to beat Jin Sang Ha. So that said how crazy this was. So everything being explained, that is where Bam's power was supposed to be. And we get this hint that Bam manages to make it quite a lot further in terms of his development as he's reaching the train. He may be getting stronger and stronger, but he's still nowhere near ready. He managed to evade Jin Sang Ha for the most part, which says a lot about the fact that Bam was capable of doing that. Even that feat in its own says a lot about his physical condition. He actually has enough of a physical condition to keep up with that rate. So it does really say something about Bam. And all of this put together also shows how dangerous Kun is. Kun may not have the power of a ranker, but he definitely has the intellect to interfere with high rankers. So there is something else which you have to understand about the Kun family. They are very dangerous for more than one reason, and this is just another reason to add to that whole situation. We then move on to the next part where they explain that White is somebody beyond their ability. Of course he's beyond their ability, he's a high ranker, and he's been reduced to a regular for some reason. So yeah, it gets really confusing, and those are some of the things you have to think about when you think about White. So yeah, that's going to be about it from me. I hope that you all do enjoy this episode, and I will catch you all in the next one. anything though. Getting back to the seal skin had peeled away from the gun. So I needed to find another way to put